Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Barker webinar. Joining me today is Dan Hong from our team. Dan is one of our lead SEO analysts, and he's going to share some amazing insight with us on how to rank higher in Google and Bing and Yahoo, and how to really drive more traffic to your website. So Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem.
My name is Brad Smith. I'm the CEO of Barker Marketing. Real quick, Barker Marketing is a full-service marketing agency. We focus on smart marketing. So what does smart marketing really mean? It means looking at data, looking at insights, and using that data to make more intelligent decisions on how to spend your marketing budget. We're really focused on not just spending more, but making our money, time, and our resources that we invest in marketing pay higher dividends. And along that mission, today we're going to be talking about search engine optimization and what we need to do in 2018, because over the last year, things have changed pretty dramatically. So let's dig in, and I just wanted to remind everyone that with GoToWebinar, we are recording this webinar, so we'll make this recording and the slides available at our website, barker.com, that's BARQAR.com. And by all means, if you have questions, use the question panel in the right column. Ask questions during the presentation. If it makes sense, we'll stop the presentation, we'll jump on those questions right away, or else we'll save questions for the end. But don't be shy, don't be bashful. Use us as a resource, and we're happy to help answer any questions that you do have. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what SEO, or search engine optimization, really is, because I think there's some confusion here. And SEO is really about the process of driving targeted traffic to your website. Okay? It's not about ranking #1 in Google search results for a single term. Okay? It really is not. And unfortunately, we've been sold SEO that way. SEO companies, both onshore and offshore companies, have approached it by using scare tactics. And I'm sure everyone on this webinar has been involved in this. You've gotten an email or a phone call from someone that said, hey, I Googled your company and I noticed that best student enrichment and engagement technology platforms, and you weren't #1 in search results. Your SEO stinks. You're losing business. I'm surprised you're still in business. And if you don't do something now, your CEO is going to fire you. And if you are the CEO, shame on you. Now, this is maybe a little over-exaggeration here, but I think you get where I'm going. When SEO salesmen call, or many digital marketing companies send you an email or proposal, they use scare tactics. They look at exactly where your website isn't performing, and they really hone in on that. Now, does that mean that your SEO really does stink? In some cases, maybe, but in other cases, maybe not. Okay? And that's why I think it's so important to understand that search engine optimization isn't about ranking for a single term. Okay? If you're not #1 for a single term, that doesn't mean your SEO stinks. We really want to focus on what SEO is, and it's not ranking #1 for an obscure term. It's getting traffic over to your site from people that are looking for the products, services, or information you provide. So when you're gauging SEO, when you're looking at analytics, when you're trying to determine if your site is performing well, don't look at just keyword rankings, look at traffic to your site. Look at the quantity of traffic to your site and look at the quality of traffic to your site. When people do get to your website from search engines, are they staying on your site? Are they converting? Are they buying a product? Are they submitting a contact form? That's the true gauge of success, not just keyword rankings. And I'm probably going to mention that 3 or 4 more times during the presentation because I think it's that important. Don't get caught up on keyword rank. And here's a better illustration as to why. Now, we have a wide variety of companies on the webinar today. We have contractors, we have those in the healthcare space, we have insurance folks, we have B2B companies, B2C companies, and I can't share specific examples with everyone, so I picked out a few here or there to incorporate into today's presentation. And this is just one example. We have a roofing contracting company that's on the call today. And they might say, hey, we want to rank well for home remodeling, and that gets a monthly volume of over 9,000 visits. Okay. If we focus on just the keyword home remodeling, we're going to get people that are looking for concrete contractors, HVAC contractors, siding, windows, roofing, remodelers, kitchen. Now, we might get lulled into a false sense of security if we rank highly for home remodeling, but that doesn't mean that we're getting traffic over to our site, and that doesn't mean that that traffic's converting. So again, that's why it's so important not to single in on 1 or 2 or 10 specific keywords, but to focus on overall traffic to your site and what's happening with that traffic. Is it converting? Are we getting good leads? Are we generating business from that? Now that's a nice segue here into our next section, is looking at keyword research. So I've said a few times, don't focus just on keywords, but we do need to look at how people are using search engines, what different phrases they're typing in to really determine what we're going to optimize our website for. So we're not just singular keyword focused. We're looking at main keywords that we want to rank well for and all the different variations of keywords that people are looking at. Now, when we do keyword research here, Dan and myself and the rest of our SEO team are using tools like Google's Keyword Planner, which is a free tool that you can look to use. But then we're using paid tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs. And these paid tools really give us some keen insights into what people are searching for around specific topics or categories. Then it's giving us competition levels. So how competitive are the terms that we're trying to rank well for? It is identifying other companies that rank well. It's giving us an idea for how those other companies' websites are performing and inbound links and all of these other factors that go into search engine optimization. So it's very important when we're choosing keywords that we look at high traffic phrases with low competition. We want as much traffic as we possibly can from people that are searching for our products, services, or our information. And we want to look for low competition because that's the low-hanging fruit. Dan, if you don't mind, walk us through a little bit more about what other factors you're looking at when it comes to keyword research, because you're amazing at this.
Sure. So when we're doing our keyword research, it's not always about picking the most popular keywords. So first, we want to make sure we're choosing keywords with a strong buyer intent. And what I mean by that is we really want to think about it from the perspective of the person performing the search. That way we can understand what they're really looking for. You know, are they still in the early stages and they're just looking for more general information on a topic? Or are they actually looking for your services and ready to buy? These are things that we want to keep in mind when we're selecting keywords that we optimize for. We also want to examine the competition. We want to look at keywords that your competitors are also targeting, and then we can see if there's an opportunity for us to rank for these powerful keywords as well. We want to look at their backlink profiles so we can determine how authoritative their site is. And we'll get more into backlinks later on in the presentation. But basically, we just want to make sure that we realistically have a shot at ranking for certain popular terms. And if not, we can just look to optimize for less competitive terms with similar buyer intent and target those instead. We want to ensure that the keyword is relevant to the page content. Now, Google is not just looking for keywords on a page. You know, Google's goal is to provide the best result that answers the user's search query. So just because you can put a keyword on a page doesn't necessarily mean that your content is the best result. And more importantly, even if people do land on your page for a certain keyword that you're optimizing for, if it's not relevant, the content of the page isn't relevant to what they were searching for, it won't convert. And Brad mentioned this, but we don't want to focus on a single term. Remember that your users will naturally type in different variations of keywords when they're searching for your services. And Google is getting better and better at interpreting these different variations. So it's important that we optimize for as many different terms that are related to your services as possible. That way, ultimately, we can drive more targeted traffic back to your site. The context is important. Google wants to understand the actual meaning of your content. So it's not only looking for your target keyword, but other related keywords as well, so it can gauge the context. So for example, say you have an article that's targeting the keyword apple. Well, is the content about the fruit or is it about the company? And it really makes a difference. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're using their terms, not yours. And what I mean by that is you may like to refer to your services a certain way or brand them a certain way. The only problem with that is that people, the users, probably won't be using those terms when they're searching for your services. So even if you were to rank number one for that term, it won't bring any targeted traffic back to your site. So what's the point?
Yeah, terrific, Dan. Thanks so much. And one bullet that I wanted to highlight here is running that competitive analysis. So oftentimes we'll get a client that wants to rank well for a term on a national level that's just a general term, like a word like roofing, right? Which is very, very competitive. And when we go run a competitive analysis, we might find out that 15 of the local competitors have 300 more inbound links to their website. They have really high domain authority. And we realize right off the bat that we can't rank well for that term. But from there, we can identify maybe 15, 20, 30 other terms that we do have a realistic shot at ranking for. So when Dan's doing this keyword research, that's a big component of it, to realize where we can have wins and where we're just going to be spinning our wheels. Excellent. So far we've defined what SEO is, what SEO isn't. We understand why SEO matters. We walked through choosing the right keywords. Now what? Well, I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that search engine optimization really has changed a lot over the last year. And if we look back over the last 3 years, things have completely changed. Now, in the past, you used to be able to focus on a singular keyword. We were ranking focused. We created content for search engines only. Dan mentioned in the last slide how important context was. In the past, we could just stuff a page full of keywords and potentially rank well. We looked at backlinks, and in the past it was quantity over quality. So companies were out there buying a bunch of junk links that just pointed to their website, and that was helping them rank. Website design wasn't important. Unique content was kind of optional back then. Fast forward to 2018, and we need to be much, much more focused. With machine learning, which we'll get into in a little bit, and Google, their advancements in their algorithm, we have to write for the user. We need to be user intent focused. We need to focus on ROI and conversion. No longer is it okay just to rank well for a given term. We need to rank well. We need to earn traffic to our site. We need to get good click-through rate, and we need to keep those people on our site if we want to maintain rankings. We need to make sure that content's optimized for humans, not the search engine. And this ties back to keyword stuffing. We can't just stuff a whole bunch of keywords in there and rank well anymore. We need to mix in tasteful optimization. We need to make sure that our site has good context, good value, and great content. For backlinks, we need to look at quality over quantity. Now, quantity is still important, but quality trumps quantity. So we want to look at earning as many links from high quality websites as we can, and we'll share some strategies for that in a bit. We need to make sure that our websites are mobile friendly, they're fast, they're responsive, they're secure. We need to make sure that we have high quality content, and that's essential. We'll see that that's essential for building links, building user engagement, driving conversions, and ranking well for a variety of different terms, like Dan mentioned. Now, today, here are a sampling, okay, just a sampling of all the different things that go into search engine optimization. There's factors tied to your domain, like how long your domain has been around. Are there keywords in it? What's the history? What's the trust factor? What's the length of your URLs? There's on-page SEO elements, like your title tags, your meta description, the content on your site, the frequency of keywords, and the density of keywords and related terms in your site. There's inbound links like we talked about. There's experiential factors. When somebody gets onto your website, how long does it take to load? What's the overall traffic to your site? How long are people staying on your site? What's their dwell time? What's their click-through rate? Do you get direct and repeat traffic? And then they're looking at social signals. So how many people are sharing content on your site? What's the authority of the person or the company that's sharing your content? How many Facebook likes do you have? How much Twitter engagement do you have? Are you getting traffic from LinkedIn? And how big is your Instagram following? And they're looking at all of these different factors to determine whether your site should rank above a competitor or not. So I highlight this slide not to overwhelm you, but to explain that SEO today is a very complex thing. All of these different factors go into it. You can't just stuff keywords on a page any longer. Now, we're going to go through each of these categories and talk in a little bit more detail about some of the most important things, some of the low-hanging fruit that you should address and fix or update immediately. And first and foremost is your domain. We want to pick a good domain and stick with it. We want to be short, brandable, and really don't try to stuff keywords in there unless it makes sense. Okay. And Dan mentioned it earlier, but we want to choose keywords that our users are using, not keywords internally that we use to describe our company. And here's an example. We work with a lot of staffing and employment agencies. And in that industry, they're beginning to transition to other terms like workforce management or human capital. Okay, the challenge is those are internal terms. They're not external. So companies and people are still looking for staffing agencies. They're not looking for human capital agencies. So it doesn't make sense to optimize our site around human capital. It's an internal term, not an external term. We want to make sure that we stick with our domain if it has good history and authority. And Dan, you see this all the time. We get companies that say, hey, I'm thinking about changing my domain. Is that a good idea?
Right. So the thing is with this, it isn't nearly as effective of a strategy as it used to be. Also, a lot of times companies will just buy a bunch of different domains and then just point them back to their main site and redirect them. Instead, what you should just be focusing on is really building a strong brand. Over time, you'll just start generating more branded search queries where users will go in and they'll type in, your brand and then your service. And then over time, Google will just start to equate your brand with these types of services and rank you for all these types of related terms.
Yeah, terrific. And be careful. If you're changing your company domain, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Google's looking at domain history. They're looking at inbound links. They're looking at redirects. They're making sure that things are mapped appropriately from the old domain to the new domain. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of factors that go into a domain switch. So don't take that lightly and don't just change domains at the drop of a hat. There are huge ramifications in doing that. I've had a lot of clients lately talk and look at purchasing domains with different country codes or different types of domain names like .net or .info, or in the case of marketing agencies, .marketing. You want to be careful there. And a great example of this is we had a physical therapist that we were working with, and they purchased the domain with the .pt extension, thinking PT, wow, that stands for physical therapy. I'm a physical therapy therapist. I should have that domain. I should own that domain. And they were marketed by their website domain and hosting company and said, hey, you need to own this domain. And they came to us and they wanted to shift their entire site over to the .pt domain name. Now, on the surface, that might sound like it makes sense, but .pt is actually the country code extension for Portugal. Now, it has nothing to do with physical therapy. It has nothing to do with PT. It's a country code. So just be careful when looking at those other domain extensions. When at all possible, I like to stick with .coms. I'm not a big fan of .biz, not a huge fan of .net. I understand that limits availability of domains, and you have to balance that. But when at all possible, stick with that .com. And as Dan mentioned earlier, we get this question a lot. Should I just go out and buy a whole bunch of different domain names and point them at me? Is that going to help me with my SEO ranking? What do you think, Dan?
Not really. The thing is, you should just focus on your brand.
Yeah. Buying a whole bunch of different domains with keywords in them that you want to rank well for and redirecting them back to your site is going to add no value. Google is looking at content on the site. It's looking at domain history, authority, context on that site. So just buying those domains and redirecting is going to do nothing for SEO. Also, real quick, don't get carried away with super long domains. You do want to include keywords in your domains for subpages of your site. So think about what you do want to rank well for, the high-level topics, and try to mix those keywords into your domain. Now let's transition a little bit and talk about on-page SEO. So on your site, each individual page is an opportunity to rank well in search results. So there's some high-level things that we need to do on these pages. First and foremost, we need to look at the title tag in your metadata. So the title tag is what appears, the bold headline, when somebody does a Google search and your site shows up. That's your title tag. That title tag also appears in the top bar of the internet browser. We want to make sure that we include keywords there, but we also want to write for the user. So in this case, this is an example, Axiom Staffing, a client that we are working with out of Pennsylvania that wanted to rank well for a term like staffing agencies in Greencastle, PA. So we've incorporated that right in the meta title of their homepage, and then you'll see that we have their company name after that. Okay. Organically, they're going to rank well for their company name. Their URL is axiomstaffing.com. They've been around for a while. They've owned that domain for a while. So that's the reason we didn't put Axiom Staffing first. You want to get your most important keywords first in your meta page title. So mix in those keywords at the beginning. And then you also want to try to keep it between 50 and 60 characters in length. As you get beyond that, it's going to get truncated and you're going to see the ... So about 50 to 60 characters. Don't keyword stuff, but do get the keywords that you want to rank well for early in the meta title. Also, I mentioned that each page of your website is an opportunity to rank well in search results. You need to make sure that each page of your website has a unique title tag. Use keywords that are specific to the content on that page. The title tags should match the content and the context of that page. So don't just stuff keywords in there on a page that isn't relevant to that term. Again, you want to use keywords early, and just as a general rule of thumb, we like the company name at the end of the page title, not at the beginning. Again, you should hopefully rank well organically for your company name. We're going to use keywords earlier in the title as opposed to your company name. Now, next is your meta page description. Your meta page description is that little paragraph of text underneath your meta page title that tells the user what your website and this particular page of your site is about. And it's important to get keywords into this meta page description, not because it's necessarily going to help you rank well, but because if you include search terms in that description, they will appear in bold when somebody is using that in their search. So it increases the likelihood that somebody's actually going to click on your result. If they're searching for, in this case, food and beverage recruiters, and you use that term in your meta page description, you'll see it shows up in bold, catches people's attention, and increases the likelihood that they're going to click through. Okay? And click-through rate, as we'll see in a little bit, is a ranking factor. So just including keywords in your meta page description isn't necessarily going to help you rank higher, but it is going to help you earn a little bit more clicks. And with these meta page descriptions, really what we're focused on is selling the value of that page to the user. So what is somebody that's clicking on the search result going to get out of clicking? If you can sell the value of your website, your page, your service, your product right in that meta description, you're going to earn more clicks, get more traffic, do more business. And that's what SEO really is about. Now, you'll see the next two bullets new. Google recently, middle of last year, came and said, hey, we're going to expand our meta page description character limit. Before, it used to be about 140 characters, somewhere in that range. It varies, but about 140 characters. They said, hey, congratulations, you're now going to get 300 characters to explain the value. And that was all well and good. We went through and we re-optimized many of our clients' websites. And newer yet, Google just said that they might be changing this back to about 150, 160-ish. This just illustrates the point that SEO is always changing. Things are fluid. Google's looking at data, Google's looking at user behavior, searcher intent, and all of these factors are going into the algorithm, and these things are constantly changing. So SEO really isn't a one-time event, it's an ongoing activity. But if you do the right things consistently, like generating good quality content that adds value, over time you're going to rank well and you're going to win at SEO. All right. Next on-page SEO is looking at how your page is structured. Now, I don't want to get too technical here and get into programming and code and everything else, but it's important that your website is programmed the right way for search engine optimization and to rank well. When Google and the other search engines are indexing your site, they're looking at things almost like an outline, and they're looking for the main topic of your page to be in what we call our H1 heading tag. So in this case, the main topic of this particular page is IT staffing services for your IT team. This page is all about IT staffing. And if you're in the IT space and looking for a great staffing company, Lighthouse Technology, which is one of our clients, is an excellent company. And in this case, we want to rank well for the term IT staffing services. So we've mixed that into our H1s. Now, as Google indexes the rest of the page, they're looking at all the content, but they're looking at other heading tags like H2, H3, H4 tags, like they're reviewing an outline. So our main topic is IT staffing. Then one of our subtopics is IT staff augmentation and staffing services. So throughout your page, you want to make sure that you get the keywords that you want to rank well for and related keywords into the H1, the H2, and H3 tags of your site, as well as the body copy. And Dan, when you're optimizing a site, I know that you optimize the heading tags very well. What about the body copy? What do you try to do with keywords in the actual body copy?
So the thing is with the body copy, this is the content, right? So Google is looking at this too. And what we try to do is not only mix in, the target keyword, IT staffing services again and again and again. What we'll like to do within the copy is mix in different variations of the term that are similar to IT staffing services that people will also be typing in, or terms that Google can look at and say, we would expect a piece of content about IT staffing services to have these type of words in it as well, like IT recruiters or something similar to that.
Yeah, terrific. And that just, again, illustrates the point that SEO isn't about one specific keyword. It's about a keyword theme and related topics around that. All right, so we talked a little bit about the low-hanging fruit. We talked about on-page content. We talked a little bit about heading tags, descriptions, and in the past, that used to be enough to get you to rank well in search engines. We could do those things, and we could rank well, and we could look like heroes for our clients. Unfortunately, things have evolved. I say unfortunately, but it's actually fortunate because the search engines are producing better results now. So all of that stuff that we just reviewed, that's really table stakes. That just gets you into the game. That's things that you just have to do. Okay, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to rank well in search. So let's dig a little bit deeper and let's talk about what really matters in 2018. So we have to do all of those other things just as our starting foundation, just to give us a chance to rank well. Now we have to look at something called Google RankBrain. We have to look at our content strategy, and we have to look at links to rank well. So Dan, if you don't mind, walk us through a little bit about what Google RankBrain is. And I know it's a complicated term, so we'll try to use layman's terms here.
Sure. So Google's RankBrain is basically their name for their machine learning algorithm that they use to process and sort the results. And it sounds really complicated, and on the back end, I'm sure it really is. But in our case, it's actually really not. Basically, the way we look at it is Google is analyzing how users are interacting with the search engine results themselves, and then automatically using this information to adjust the rankings accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you. And we've mentioned it a bunch of times, but in order to optimize your site for search engines and in order to make sure that we optimize for RankBrain and the other algorithms, again, we can't focus just on one single keyword. We need to look at a hierarchy of terms. We need to look at a keyword phrase that we want to rank well for. We need to think about what related keywords or variations of that main keyword or theme there are. And then we have to look at secondary keywords. So on websites out there that rank well, what secondary or related terms also appear on those pages that tie to the main topic? And to illustrate this, we're going to use White House as an example. Let's say you wanted to rank well for a big term like the White House. Well, we would have to have content on our site that talked about the president, talked about Washington, talked about government, maybe included Trump or Obama or Clinton or Bush. We'd also need to look at secondary related keywords. So what's happening right now tied to the president? Nuclear summit, Korea, North Korea, Kim Jong-un. We need to look at all of these other terms. We might need to look at things like fake news or orange or things like that that tie to the keyword phrase that we want to rank well for. And I'll kind of stop there so we don't get too political here. But when you're looking at how you're going to optimize your site and the keywords that you're going to include, you need to take all these things into consideration. And on our end, when we're doing keyword research for one of our clients, that's exactly what Dan's doing. He's looking at a main topic. He's looking at what other terms are included or tied to that main topic when people are doing search queries. He's looking at page content on sites that rank well for that query and looking at what other related and secondary terms also are included on those pages. So we need to look at all those things, and that's why SEO isn't keyword focused, it's results focused. The next thing that we suggest you look at doing is setting up something called Google Search Console. This is something free. You can type in Google Search Console into Google. It'll take you to a page. You can set up a free account, and it's a little piece of code that you're going to want to install on your website or send your website programmer and they can install it. But basically what this is going to do is going to show you exactly what search queries you show up for in search results and give you some keen insights and data. It'll show you how many clicks you're earning, what your total impressions are, average click-through rate, where you rank in terms of other websites. So it's going to give you some ideal information. And it's going to give you data that you can take action on. And Dan, I know that you use Google Search Console a lot, right?
Right.
So some of the key things that Google Search Console is going to give you are tied directly to key RankBrain metrics. And as Dan mentioned earlier, Google's algorithm really runs off of RankBrain. It's Google's artificial intelligence and machine learning that improves search results over time. So these are three factors that are very important to search ranking. And Dan, do you mind kind of going through each one of these and giving a brief explanation?
Sure. So there are hundreds of different factors that RankBrain looks at, but when we're doing our optimizations, there are three main ones that we really like to optimize for. The first being the click-through rate. The click-through rate is basically the percentage of people that click on your website when it appears in the search engine results page. So basically how this works, when someone performs a search, right, if a lot of people are clicking on a particular result, it's a strong signal to Google that the result is really relevant to the query and that it's just a good result. So if Google sees this, it might actually boost that result in the rankings and then see how well it performs. Another thing that we like to look at is the dwell time. And dwell time is basically the combination of user engagement on your site and session duration or time on page, how long they're actually spending on your page once they get there. So say a lot of people click on result and then they go to a page. If the user leaves that page immediately without reading it or and goes to another result, that signals to Google that, hey, this content didn't solve the user's problem. So they might boot it from that top ranking position because it doesn't deserve to be there. And then finally, bounce rate, which is, it kind of ties in with dwell time as well. But the bounce rate is basically the percentage of people that leave your site after visiting only one page. So if people land on your page and they immediately bounce, or they leave the page without reading the content, it could potentially mean that either the content is hard to read or there are some problems with navigation and user experience. And this is something that Google is looking at. So if your site isn't performing well, then it doesn't deserve to rank at the top, and they might boot you out of those top positions.
All right, let's dig a little bit deeper into each one of these key metrics. As Dan mentioned, they're extremely important in ranking in Google. So we'll dig into each of these and we'll give you tips, tools, and strategies to improve each of these metrics. So first, we're going to start with CTR, click-through rate. As Dan mentioned, it's not good enough just to rank high for a given set of terms. We need to make sure that people are clicking on those terms. So in terms of results for SEO, who really cares if you rank high for a term if nobody's clicking on it? And if nobody's clicking on it, Google is going to know that, and you're not going to rank there for very long. So first and foremost, we need to look at Google Search Console, and that's going to tell us what terms we're currently showing up in search queries for, and it's going to allow us to sort by click-through rate percentage. We're going to look for those terms where we have a low click-through rate. If we have a low click-through rate, we need to determine whether or not we want to rank well for that term. If we don't, then don't worry about it. But if we do want to rank well for that term and we have a low click-through rate, we need to update our meta page description and we need to update our meta page title. We need to sell the value that people are going to get out of clicking on our site. We need to look at what's in it for me. So oftentimes when we're writing website copy for our own websites, people have a tendency to write all about themselves or all about how great their product or their service is. We need to completely flip that mentality. You need to write about the value that the end consumer is getting out of clicking. And if you can do that effectively, you'll get higher click-through rate. And then we may also need to look at refocusing our keyword strategy for that page. So if we're ranking for a term that we don't want to rank well for, or that really isn't relevant to our business, our service, or our products, then we might need to examine that page and determine why we're ranking for a term that doesn't, relate to us, and refocus our keyword strategy. Now, dwell time, Dan mentioned, is the amount of time that people are spending on our site. It's important to Google. If Google sees that people are getting to your site and they're leaving right away and they're spending a few seconds and that's it and leaving your site, that's a cue that your site isn't relevant. It's not a good result to show up in their search queries. So we need to identify what are the top and bottom performing pages on our site. We want to look at the top so that we can structure other pages on our site similar to that. We want to look at the bottom performing pages on our site so we can determine whether there's a reason people aren't staying on that page. We need to look at those pages and maybe better match the searcher intent. Maybe it's serving up different products or serving up different information on that page. We can look at adding rich media to our website. If a page has short dwell time, add in a video, look at slide shares, look at infographics, do something to engage and pull that user in more and get them to spend more time on your site. You need to add more valuable content. You could look at improving the mobile experience. Make sure that your site is current and contemporary. So websites that are outdated, that are drab, that don't adhere to current development best practices generally have very low dwell times and very low time on site. Over time, your SEO is going to degrade and you're going to get less and less traffic. You need to present content in an easy to digest format, and then use good internal linking and share related content. And Dan, I know that you've seen when we have related content at the bottom of a page, dwell times increased, right?
Right. So the thing with that is a lot of times you land on a page, right, and there's no links on it, so they have nowhere to go, right? So if you're not directing your users somewhere else, then they won't stay on your page. They have nowhere to go, so they'll just leave.
Yeah, we did a project for a radiology practice, and we found that they had amazing content on their site. They ranked well, but users were leaving after visiting a page. They'd come there, they'd consume some great content, and they'd leave. We went through the site, added strong calls to action at the bottom of the page, shared related content, outlined what action we wanted people to take next, which was schedule an appointment, and their schedule and appointment traffic went up almost 90% just by adding in that related content and that strong call to action. We made it easy for people to take that next step. Go through your website and do the same thing. What's the next step you want people to take on a specific page? And make it simple and easy for them. And you'll see your dwell time go up, and over time, your search rankings and search traffic go up. Now, as Dan mentioned, bounce rate is tied and linked closely to dwell time. So bounce rate is the percentage of people that leave your website after only one page. If you have a high bounce rate, those people probably aren't staying on your site very long. So we want to look at Google Analytics to identify top bounce pages, improve readability, add stronger calls to action. As I just mentioned, define the desired next path for the person, make sure that the page is optimized, improve site speed, add more rich media. And really what it comes down to is creating value that people can't get elsewhere. And that could come in the form of white papers. Dan, I know you're a fan of long form content too.
Right. We've just seen that long form content, it's more valuable, right? So you can answer more of their questions in long form content, and people like that. So if you can fully answer a question that someone's asking and provide that much more value, then your rankings will go up.
Yeah, for sure. And the last bullet here is looking at pop-ups, or what they call exit technology. So there's technology now where if, as somebody's going to click the X in their internet browser and or the back button, you could have a pop-up show up, and think about what value, what you can provide to the user or the searcher to get them to stay on your site. Okay, it might be a guide, it might be a white paper, it might be some special offer, it might be a coupon. Think about what value you can offer to people to earn their business, to earn their time, to earn the next click. All right, let's transition a little bit. We're going to talk about good content. And if you can make your site a destination that has good content, that has good value, that answers a searcher's question, that provides them with needed information or needed service or a needed product, you're going to over time rank well in search results and get better results. And I've got this slide in here, and I absolutely love this slide. This dates back to 2011. So I mentioned a few times that SEO has dramatically changed over the last several years. And this slide is 7, almost 8 years old now. Why in the world do I have this in here? Dan, why do I have this in here?
Because there are some core principal concepts about SEO that will never change. There's a lot of people who are worried about, algorithm changes, I might get penalized. Well, if you create good content that Google wants to show to its users that will solve their problems, you will never get penalized, and this will never change.
Yeah, and this is direct from the Google developers blog. So they've come out and they've said what Dan just said. It's all about content. Okay, it's about providing good value, good valuable insight, good valuable answers to people's questions. So it's not enough just to provide content for content's sake. You need to answer the searcher's question. You need to provide value. You need to be a thought leader. You need to provide something different than other people are providing. So content is key. So with that said, think about this internally. Do you have an ongoing content plan right now? Do you have someone on your team that actively goes out and looks at web analytics to determine what people are searching for on your site, what content they're engaging with, what the most popular pages on your site are, what the most popular articles or blog posts or information on your site is? Do you have somebody that's actively managing and creating unique custom content around what you want to rank well for? If not, you need to reevaluate, and you need to think about who in your organization could help handle that, or look at, and not to make a sales pitch, but look at outsourcing this. We do this for 300 companies across the US. We'll go through and we'll ghostwrite content. We'll look at their analytics. We'll look at their webmaster suite, and we'll determine what content we need to write in order to earn more search engine traffic from people that are looking for the products, services, and solutions they offer. So mix in different forms of rich media. It could be articles, blog posts, infographics, white papers, long form content, short form content. Mix in a variety here. Add content weekly to your site and be consistent. Make sure that you're consistently adding good quality, fresh content. And over time, you'll rank well. Now, a question just came in that said, are you better off having more content on one page or linking to them from a second page from that content? Which ranks better? And Dan, you want to answer that one?
Sure. So the answer is, well, yes, really. So basically, you want to have long form content, right? And we call this pillar content. So in this pillar content, you will outline multiple different categories, put them into subheadings, right? And then from this main piece of pillar content, you can expand on each one of those little headings and create a shorter piece of content that goes more in depth on that specific category, and then add those as separate pages to your site as well.
Yeah, and I promise I didn't seed this question. That was a real question that came in from Jeff. So Jeff, thank you so much for that question. You could have been a part of this webinar because that leads right into our next slide here. The key is, like Dan just mentioned, having some longer form content. So a page or a section or an area or a resource on your site that provides a very, very detailed overview of a given topic. And in this case, we'll use the example of a white paper. Let's just say, for purposes of this example, you're a kitchen remodeling contractor. Okay, you might create a white paper about all of the key decisions that go into a kitchen remodel. So this might be really long form content. Okay, but then you break that long form content up into a series of different blog posts. So maybe you do a blog post on different types of cabinets. Okay, and then maybe you do an infographic that outlines the difference between quartz and granite countertops. And then maybe you do a slide share on different types of flooring. And maybe you do some social shareables on quotes or reviews that other people have left you. Or maybe you do a video that walks through different fixtures or things like that. So all of the things that go into a kitchen remodel would be in your white paper, and then you'd break that white paper up into all of these other supporting nuggets or smaller pieces of content. And we mentioned the call to actions and the related links. All of these individual pieces of content are going to link back to the white paper so that people can download this and you generate leads for your business. So this is really what Dan just explained and the question that Jeff asked in context here. You have that long form content. That's the key, and you break it into sub-content. All right. Why is content so important? Well, it's mixing in good quality keywords throughout your site. It's adding value to the user. It's getting people to stay on your site longer. And then it's also going to help you create more inbound links. So just as important as content is inbound links back to your site. In order to rank well, we need to generate good quality links from good quality sites. So Dan, walk us through a little bit why links are so important, and more specifically, what's Google actually looking at? Because we said earlier, it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Sure. So the thing with backlinks is the other important ranking factor. There are two major ones. The first is content, the second is links. So why are links so important? Well, the reason is, say two sites are targeting the exact same keyword. Well, how does Google decide which site should rank at the top? And it's really just based on trust. So Google will tend to rank these trustworthy sites that have already proven themselves at the top, simply because they're more likely to provide better results. So the question is, how do you prove that your site is trustworthy to Google? Well, when a site that Google already deems as trustworthy links back to your website, it's a sign to Google that your site must also be trustworthy. So that's why it's so important that we incorporate a strategy to acquire these links from reputable sources.
Terrific. Thanks.
So another thing, speaking on the quality versus quantity, not all backlinks are created equal. So Google is not just looking at how many links you have coming to your site, but also where is that link coming from? One link from a really reputable brand in your industry will hold a lot more value than 100 links from spammy directory type websites.
Yeah, and there was a algorithm released not too long ago that actually hurt websites that went out there and bought all those spammy links. So if you get one takeaway here, it's don't buy links. As we mentioned a few times, great content is going to help generate links. So Google's #1 tip for building links is start blogging, start creating that good content, and then share that content on social sites. And here are just a few other link building strategies that we find effective. Creating and writing press releases on things like awards, new hires, promotions, and then submitting and using paid distribution to get that content out. It's a great way to build inbound links from very reputable news sites. Share content on social networks. Provide testimonials to your vendors and ask them to link back to your site. Make sure that you claim all your social and local listings. These are called citations. So search for your business out there and see where your address pops up. Make sure they're consistent. Make sure it includes a link back to your site. There's other services out there like Yext.com, Y-E-X-T, that will help make sure that you claim and secure all your local listings. That's paid, but it's a good way to make sure those are all consistent. Look at industry or local associations, connect with local colleges, guest blog for quality, relevant news sites or other industry sites in your industry. Create pillar content like we described, and of course, don't buy links that will hurt you over time.
And just to speak on that, it's like we mentioned, not all backlinks are created equal, right? So, there are services out there that'll promise to build you like 10,000 backlinks to your site for like $20. The thing is with these links, they really don't hold any value at all and will likely result in a penalty. So just remember, if it sounds like it's too good to be true, then it probably is.
Yeah, it certainly is. Another key to SEO is improving your user experience. So Google is looking at page load speed as a ranking factor, so make sure that you have a host that's reputable, it's speedy, good, quick response time. You can look, if you have video on your site, look at hosting it on YouTube or Vimeo so that it's not bogging down your site load speed. Good, clean programming speeds sites up. If your website is outdated, so more than like 2 years old, you really need to look at that because programming methodologies and architecture has changed so much. You need to look at effective caching and content delivery networks, and I'm not going to get into the technical details here, but this will help dramatically speed up your site. Choose a good content management platform. Keep plugins up to date. Internally here at Barker, we use WordPress, and we make sure that all our plugins are current, up to date, and secure. You need to host what they call DNS with a reputable registrar. We use Cloudflare here, and that helps with our content delivery network, and it really dramatically speeds up your site load speed. Use a host with redundancy built in so that your site is hosted on many different places and many different levels and can be served up from a server that's close to the user. So there's so many different options here to really pay attention to and make sure that your site is hosted well. And Jeff just asked another great question. Isn't there a Google tool that let's see.
It shows the number of searches per term.
Oh, yes. Jeff, there is certainly a tool that will show you that. That's tied to Google AdWords, and then we also use Ahrefs and SEMrush. Where I thought that question was going, though, is isn't there a Google tool that shows site speed? And there certainly is. You can go to Google and just search for site speed test, and Google will allow you to put your site in there. It'll tell you exactly how fast your site is and then give you recommendations for how you can speed things up. And this is why it's so important that your website is fast. Consumers are expecting it loads in 2 seconds or less. If you're in e-commerce, it's very important. A 1 second delay in page response, they found, can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. People will abandon a site if it takes too long to load. And as you see in this last bullet, if a site's making 100,000 per day, a 1 second page delay could cost you over $2.5 million in lost sales every year. So site speed truly is important. And it starts with a good framework. You need fast web hosting, proper caching, make sure that your site minifies JavaScript and CSS files, use a content delivery network, make sure that images are properly compressed, and make sure that your website uses clean code. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about security. Now, HTTPS is extremely important now, and there's some statistics on this, and I won't dig into each of these, but the key takeaway is that you need to make sure that your site is secure. If your site is not secure, your SEO rankings probably are being hurt right now and are sure to be hurt here in a little bit. And here's why. Starting way back in 2013-14, Google started encouraging all webmasters, regardless of whether you were an e-commerce site or taking payment or anything else, to make sure that their sites had SSL encryption to improve data security. In 2006, Google came out and said that unencrypted sites would soon be marked as unsafe. You need to make sure that if your site is only HTTP, that you get that secure. You use SSL encryption and get that taken care of. To check if your site is secure or not, load it, go up, click on it in your internet browser, and make sure it says HTTPS. And come July 1st, Google and Chrome and many of the other internet browsers are going to be giving users the warning that you see in the right side of the screen. Okay, your site's not going to load appropriately for many people. People are going to abandon it. So another key takeaway from today's webinar: make sure your site is secure. It's going to impact search results, and it's also, if it's not secure by July 1st, your traffic's going to go down. All right, a few more things that we're going to talk about. I know we're nearing the end here, but we're going to talk about mobile SEO, and we're going to talk about voice SEO. And these are key topics. Make sure your website's built for mobile. There's been a rapid shift. More people are visiting websites from mobile than they are from desktop today. So you need to make sure that your site is optimized for mobile. Make sure that it loads fast. You need to make sure that your site is responsive. In the past, you used to have two different websites, one mobile, one desktop. It's no longer the case. You need to make sure that your site is responsive and adjusts to the device that the user is searching on it. Okay, they might be searching on an iPhone, they might be searching on a tablet, they might be searching on Android, they might be on a desktop, they might be on an iPad. Your website should automatically conform to fit to those devices and automatically be optimized. You want to make sure that there's a good user experience, and responsive design is Google's preferred methodology. Dan, let's kind of wrap up here and talk a little bit about voice SEO. Voice is becoming really, really important, and I thought this was a great stat.
Definitely, yeah. So we've been doing a lot of research to see how we can implement voice search just because it's really new. So I just wanted to highlight this stat by ComScore that predicts that roughly 50% of all searches will be done by voice in 2020. And with devices like Alexa and voice assistants on mobile devices becoming more and more popular these days, it's really important that we keep an eye on these trends, see how everything converts, see how we can actually optimize our sites to take advantage of this.
Yeah, we're going to see this more and more and more. I mean, people are using Siri, they're using Alexa, Google Assistant, home device. There's another stat that I found. 76% of smart home speaker users conduct local searches at least once a week. 3 out of 4 people that own a smart speaker are using it at least once a week to do a local search. If you're a local business and your site isn't optimized for voice, you're losing out on a big opportunity here. So what can you do to make your site more attractive to voice search? Here are just a few bullets, and these are going to change over time, but a few takeaways here. Write more question and answer type of content and be deliberate. People are using voice search to ask for very specific questions. Be an answer to those questions. Think about the questions that people are asking you all the time. Asking your support team, asking your sales reps, asking your service professionals. Turn that into content and make sure that each one of those questions is an individual page on your site. Make sure it's properly coded with something called schema, which we'll get into in a minute. You could create list type articles, so the top 5 tips, top 10 articles. Those generally perform really well in voice search. You can use long tail keyword search strings. So people are more apt to do a longer search when they're using voice. And then use location-based search terms more. So people are appending their searches with terms like near me or around me or close to me. So when you're generating content, mix those terms in. Contractors near me, roofing companies near me, best rated remodelers in a specific city. So get geo-targeted. And I warned you, we were going to talk a little bit about schema markup, so we're going to get geeky here. And Dan, tell us what schema markup is and why people should care.
Sure. So basically, schema markup is code that you can put onto your web pages to make it easier for search engines to categorize and understand what your pages actually are. And they use this to help them effectively serve relevant search results.
Terrific, yeah, and it's tied to the code of your site, but you need to map things accordingly. Your website developer and programmer needs to know how to program this correctly, and it's going to become more important. So it's tied to things like reviews, it's tied to product descriptions, articles, jobs. It's tied to a whole bunch of different categories. So you need to make sure that your site is properly optimized, and if it is, you have an opportunity to rank higher in search results and get in a key coveted spot called a featured snippet, like the example here. So in any Google search result, oftentimes you'll see ads display at the top. And then below that, for some search queries, you'll see content served right up in Google search results. And this is an example from the Barker.com website, our site. We do some business with restaurants and catering companies across the US. We wrote an article on 5 ways restaurants can sell more catering services. We wrote this because we saw that there was a high search volume for catering services. Restaurants are a key set of clients for us, and we're adding value. This post didn't sell our services, but it told people how to generate more business. It answered their search query. And you can see in the top right column, our page traffic continues to go up and up and up and up because we're ranking in this coveted featured snippet spot. We did the same thing for one of our other clients. This is a client who we wrote an article for. And as you can see in the top right column, since they've been featured as a rich snippet, traffic to this article on their site is now getting more traffic than their homepage. And since getting a featured snippet, their traffic has doubled. This is getting a lot of people over to their website and converting a lot of people for them. So how do you get a featured snippet? Few examples. You can write how-to articles. Ask and answer questions like we just talked about. You can use tools to help. Internally here, we use SEMrush, and there's a rich snippet search tool that shows keywords that have rich snippets showing up. You can use a website called Answer the Public, and this is a really cool site that tells you what questions people are typing into Google. You want to be direct and get to the point. Featured snippets are usually about 40 to 50 words. And then we talked about this earlier, but you want to structure your content appropriately with heading tags, H1, H2, H3. We need to make sure that Google, Bing, and Yahoo can easily index the content and you can display as a rich snippet. So just to summarize things, I know we're right at our limit here. The keys to better SEO. Dan, what's the first key again?
Content.
Content. Add great quality content. If you do this consistently, you'll rank well. Make sure it's coded properly. Get links. If you write that content, you over time will get links. Do your research. Look at Search Console. Look at Google Analytics. See how you're performing. Adjust, tweak, and then repeat. Or, and here is my direct sales pitch, just call Barker Marketing. We have our phone number here. Dan and myself can help lead the charge on your SEO efforts. We have a full team of advisors that can help with custom content writing, that can help with search engine optimization, social media marketing. We do a ton of website development. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to give you some tips, best practices, do a website analysis for you, come back with recommendations on how you can improve your site and get more search results. And with that said, we're going to open it up to questions, and a few more questions have come in that we'll answer. If you don't want to ask these questions in front of everybody, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer those offline. Or if you have something that's very specific to your company or your website, reach out, let me know, and we'll answer those questions. So with that said, there were a few questions that came in. Dan, do you want to?
They're just part of the other one.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, is there a Google tool? And
That was just in response to it.
okay, there was a another question that came in just talking about keyword research. Like I had mentioned earlier, Google does have a tool for keyword research that's going to give you some keen insight. It's going to it's really tied to AdWords, so it's going to give you an overall search volume for a specific set of terms, and then it's going to give you how much competition there is in AdWords for that term, not necessarily internet wide or search wide. So it's looking more so at paid competition rather than organic competition. So that's why we use tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush, which we feel provides a better look at competition and organic traffic. So those are just two tools that we use. There's several others out there. There's moz.com has a great robust set of tools, and there's many others out there too. With that said, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us on today's call. If you do have questions, don't be shy, reach out. We also offer ongoing SEO services. So we will come up with a custom SEO plan for you on a monthly basis. We offer content writing on a monthly basis, and it's much more cost effective than you may even be thinking. So please reach out to us. We'd be happy to look at your website, come back with some very specific recommendations, and really help you dominate search. Thank you so much. Dan, thank you so much for the great insight here.
Yep.
Really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. Take care, everyone. And be sure to join us for our next Smart Marketing webinar. It'll be happening next month. We're going to focus on positioning, branding, and coming up with a good key core story. So there's going to be some great examples there and a great way to really help identify what your key core positioning message is. So be sure to join us. We'll send out more information on that once we have a date finalized. Thank you.